I wonder if like House of the Dragon season 2 is the equivalent of like one of these One Piece, like, oh, you can skip that arc because not much really happens. Like you could watch a abbreviated version of this season, like the same way people have done supercuts of Obi-Wan. Maybe someone could come along and do a supercut of season 2 of House of the Dragon and condense it to like 4 hours maybe.
If that, you could watch episode 1, 4, and 8 and you'd probably get the point.
I also thought that like you could just watch 1, 4, and 8 and be probably just fine.
I think we're both of the opinion that this season started building up and then they just kept building up and then it just kind of cut.
Yeah, well, I went over our old reviews in preparation just to see where our mood changes and my mood changes, and we're largely quite positive up until the end of Rook's Rest. And then you can kind of feel the chinks in the armour happening a little bit more and more to eventually we're just at the end. And we're like, oh, that's it. Like every week you're going, oh, that Damon stuff will make sense. It'll get good eventually. Like we trust them. And then it's been 4 or 5 episodes of largely the same point being hit with Damon. I think the thing we need to ironically anchor this review about is the main criticism is that we need to anchor it around Alicent and Rhaenyra.
Well, the show does.
The show does.
Yeah,
so
the show anchors itself around Alicent and Rhaenyra.
It'll kill itself.
To definitely its detriment, yeah. It'll chain them together and then one of them will jump off a bridge.
Yeah, and they'll be happy. I watched this show with my lovely wife next to me, so I got to hear a woman's opinion. And in large, she was just annoyed that they were both so fucking boring. and that was her main complaint.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think they've neutered not just the book version, but the version of season 1 Alicent. Like if you watch season 1 Alicent, the Alicent of the Driftmark episode, who when her son's eye's been taken out, that should be it.
I was thinking even the introduction to Alicent after the time skip, once we get old Alicent, it's Rhaenyra giving birth and immediately has to take her, probably a bastard son, to see the evil bitch queen.
Yes.
So I'm like, wow, this is an evil bitch queen.
Yes.
And now she's nothing.
And when you look back on that, it's like these people in the show version were friends for their childhood. Let's say that. Alicent was maybe a year or 2 older, but similar age.
Yeah.
I don't know if they intended it or not, but I think the show, now looking back on season 1, did a better job at showing their 2 perspectives and why both of them would feel disgruntled with each other. Obviously, Rhaenyra thinks that her best friend was only best friends with her so she could cozy up with her dad.
To sleep with her dad. It happens.
And then Alicent is annoyed because she allowed Rhaenyra to enter into her religion, like to basically share a very private thought, and for Alicent, a very religious person, to like share a prayer with Rhaenyra. And then for Rhaenyra to then use that religion when she goes, I swear to you, I didn't sleep with anyone, I didn't break my vows. But then when old mate Cole then admits that that's what happened, then that for her is a big no, like, oh, you just spat my religion and our friendship in my face.
It seems like they're going to go into that a lot more, especially in season 1, but then they kind of stop. Like when Alicent is defending Rhaenyra to Viserys, and she's saying, no, she swore to me. Like, she swore on the gods.
Yeah.
We're fine. She didn't do it.
Yeah.
Nothing happened.
Because that's all
We're
they have
good.
at that level. Which is why I was a bit annoyed back when they almost became friends again at the end of season 1. Season 1 should have been the king has died and any chance of this being resolved amicably is gone.
Yes. Well, I thought that's what eating the sun was. I thought that was the spark that lights the fire that starts the flame.
Both of them, I would argue, have been placed in this pedestal of too perfect. Like, they are morally absolutely fine now. Like, they're going back on things that they set up in season 1. Alicent agrees that her son Aegon needs to be killed after she forced him to become king.
Yeah, that screenshot where it's like, I don't want to be king. And she's like, you have to be king. And he's like, okay, I'll be king. And she's like, no, I'm going to be king.
And I know there's going to be some people out there who maybe are trying to understand or see what they're going for. But from what we know from the showrunner, Ryan, and Sarah, who is a fellow writer, I think it was episode 2 she wrote. That's with your favourite scene of the Damon and Rhaenyra argument. We were saying, how this was a really great talky episode and had a lot of that drama we wanted.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that was written and directed by the same team who then did episode 8.
She's listed as executive producer, but it does seem like she's
a little bit more involved than just a writer in the room.
Has her hand in possibly every episode.
Maybe the overarching thing, and their perspective seems to be from, and you can get the quote up, that this is 2 women trying to sort things out, and really they're trying to make all this make sense, and it's women in a man's world trying to make sense of it all. and it's not interesting. And I think they're the problem, that then, because they're dull, it then echoes out to everyone else.
Yeah, well, we focus too heavily on them to the expense of literally everyone else as well.
Yeah, because they follow the book in terms of plot point structure. So Rhaenyra sits in Dragonstone and largely does nothing for a few weeks while Jace, Corlys and Damon do things. So that's what they do. Instead of making Rhaenyra more active or doing more things within Dragonstone, it's just, let's just lampshade her going, why am I doing nothing?
But they also, because they were focusing on her doing nothing, they weren't able to show Jace or Corlys or anyone doing anything. They skipped over Jace's whole arc, basically.
Yeah, like, I can be a ruler.
He has this whole formative thing in the north that they're like,
Then he brings back.
shit, let's just bring him back.
I think what they've done, particularly with Alicent more than Rhaenyra, they've really made Alicent a really boring, just wet blanket of a character. Both sides have a somewhat legitimate claim that Rhaenyra is, I'm legitimate because that's what the last king wanted. The last king said I was the heir, and Aegon goes, I'm the heir because due to Andor tradition, I'm the eldest son, and the only reason my dad was the king was because we all agreed in the vote that the male takes over the woman. That if there's a male there, he's in charge. So that was locked in.
It's tradition versus new ideas. So it's literally, just because it's old doesn't mean it's right, versus it's been working forever, why change it?
They don't even make it Rhaenyra versus Aegon. They make it just kind of goody-baddie. Like,
with Rhaenyra being definitely the good guy, because she has she knows what the prophecy was. And I think I talked about it before, but I hate prophecies in most things.
Particularly when we know this in the show canon, it's a load of bollocks.
And it leads to nothing. Yeah. Because normally it takes away a bunch of agency, but there are a few ways to do prophecy interesting. You talk about the way George R.R. Martin does it in the books being, it's usually
misinterpreted,
which is kind of the way J.K. Rowling did it, even in Order of the Phoenix.
Right.
Like, not everyone's favorite writer, not even a very good writer, depending on how you look at it.
Or person.
But yeah, Harry in general happens because Voldemort misinterprets the prophecy as either it can be Longbottom or Potter. So then he tries to murder both of them. He's like, I'll cover all my bases. But then that becomes interesting again later on when they get a new prophecy.
Too bad Voldemort didn't use a gun.
That whole movie is about Harry having dreams and prophecies, and it's like, oh no, it was a trick. Like, you can do stuff with prophecies, but you don't just say, this is the correct way to look at it.
What George goes for in the books is it's not so much the prophecy, but how a person reacts to that prophecy.
Yep.
Which is what we had in the first season, that Viserys is so sure that he's going to have a son because he had a dream.
Yep. Sacrifices his wife.
Sacrifices his wife because of that. And we have this a lot in the show, in the Duncan Eggs books. We have a character who has a dream, who truly believes that this is it. For some reason, they've placed Rhaenyra and Alicent, and Rhaenyra particularly, as not characters, but as women. That they are the embodiment of women. So because of that, they don't get to be interesting. Aegon's just some shit man. So he gets to be interesting, which is why I think they were surprised at the fandom of Damon. Yes, because he's well acted. Yes, because he's attractive. But also because he's just a bloke. They allow him to be a bit of a dick, and turns out the modern audiences like a bit of depth to characters.
Yeah.
So what I would have done is, obviously what I would have done, Rhaenyra's been raised from a very early age that her dad, because he feels bad about the death of his wife, that you're the prince that was promised, and you're going to be queen because you're actually the special chosen one who's going to join the whole realm and defeat the darkness in the north. And she grows up believing that. She sees the fucking white stag as her, like, yes, I am the chosen one.
That didn't lead to anything.
Well, that was a show invention.
But we thought it would lead.
Yeah, but that was them. It was meant to be her seeing that and going, no, this is it. I am the heir.
I am God.
I am the heir. So being brought up like that would mess you up, because you not only do you have a dragon and you're one of these, you're the 1% of the 1%, but now you believe you're even extra special, which is in the Targaryen history. These people who, like Rhaegar in the history, thinks because he's born of the line, he's like, I'm going to go and manipulate a small Stark girl into believing that we're going to have a prophecy baby together.
Yep.
It's pretty fucked up.
Worked though.
Well, we don't know in the books, but still. But with this, instead of it being that Rhaenyra is now morphed and, as we were saying in the reviews, that the death of her son and all the trauma of losing her father and the stillbirth of the baby has meant that she's lent in further to, I'm meant to be queen because I'm the prophesied prince that was promised. She remarkably becomes very calm.
She wants less war.
Yeah, you wouldn't think she becomes so calm. You think she would become a maniacal person who's making really bad decisions, such as allowing randoms to become dragon riders.
Which in the show, The show seems confused about what it wants to do there. They do the shot of May with the fire in her eyes in the Acolyte. Like, they show her as the bad guy from a visual standpoint. Everything the visuals are doing is like, this woman is insane. Like, what she's doing, she's watching people burn alive in the hopes to win a war. Like, she's testing her bioweapon, basically.
Yeah.
But then everything in the narrative is doing the exact opposite.
Well, isn't that kind of villainy to see a load of poor people? You've told a load of poor people that they can become dragon riders.
You would show the villain standing on the opposite side of the glass wall as people like melt inside.
We said how Donkey was, Ulf was Donkey from Shrek. Rhaenyra was Lord Farquaad. It's a sacrifice I am willing to make. Like, she did do that.
She wins. She's right.
And she gets the hero shot.
Yeah, immediately after.
So the show doesn't really know. Like, it's going, oh no, Rhaenyra's the hero and everything that she does is justified.
Yeah.
And then, but Alicent is completely neutered. You know, I read you a quote from a BuzzFeed article of all things saying that, like, there's plenty of examples in history and in Game of Thrones of women working within the patriarchy to their advantage.
Yes.
And the Tyrells...
Like Eleanor banged everyone until she was on top.
Exactly. And they even say that the House Tyrell is more or less secretly ran by the women. That they are working within the restraints they have.
Yep.
And we see in Dawn, even in the more loosey-goosey, it's still women having to operate within a man's world somewhat. But that would be very girl boss over Rhaenyra and Alicent to have to work within the patriarchy.
Yeah.
So they're going to
break the wheel.
Just not do that.
But not like Daenerys.
And so Alicent gets this moment of being annoyed that Team Boy picks a boy. It's like, are you mad? Are you stupid?
Like, this was always a risk.
If they made her fully manipulative and not just, no, you know, guess what? He changed his mind at the last second. He wants Aegon to be king. Instead, if it was like, nah, fuck it. Ever since my son's eye got taken out and my husband didn't even like punish her a little bit, I went, fuck this family.
Yeah.
I'm making sure my son gets in charge. And then because she's raised her son and told her son, Rhaenyra will fucking kill you, the spiteful bitch, and her uncle husband definitely will.
That's a massive point that no one seems to believe. Like, at no point are we shown Rhaenyra even considering to kill anyone.
Wouldn't that be way more interesting, though, if we did that? That if they, even though you don't want to kill the gays, if you had Rhaenyra and Damon full-on kill her husband because she needed that political strength of Damon over him, then we would be going, that's a fair point.
She doesn't make any moves to kill Aegon.
Exactly.
Aegon sends a guy to go kill Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra never really makes a move against the crown at all.
Well, her move is to dress like a septon and try and make peace.
It's always peace.
Even towards the end, she's like, I was hoping with us powering up with dragons, we'd have peace.
Because they have the two big moments, right? So they've got Aemond kills Luke. And that's basically like the big, oh, Rhaenyra wants blood now.
Yeah.
Rhaenyra's like, fuck this. They're going to try to kill us. They are trying to kill us. And then you've got Alicent going, oh, God, no, we didn't mean to do that. We didn't mean to do that. We don't want all that war. But then blood and cheese happens. So then Alicent should be like, oh, actually, I do want war now.
Yeah, because we've all went...
Yeah, they both get their big fuck the other one moment, but then they don't use it. They both then go, oh shit, maybe we should have peace. It's interesting that they chose to do that, because in the book, they tie Alicent up and force her to subscribe to Bergenbeard.
That's it. Yeah, that's real good. I like that one. It's been kind of a joke on the Reddit, is that the twink Bracken was more annoyed about the baby dying than his grandmother.
Babe killer. What did you say?
Sir Twink of House Bracken is what they're calling him.
It should have been used way more propagandary as well.
And that is the case where the book version was seriously better, like I explained to you, with Alicent is in the room gagged and having to witness this herself.
Yeah.
Like, that would have been a, nah, fuck it. And both of them then would have been, no, fuck you. And then we could have went in. But I don't know what their motivation was, because how is Rhaenyra different, actually different? What is the arc of this character?
Right.
From the beginning to the end of this season. Not saying that because Damon kind of has an arc. He goes from being it's about me to actually it's about her.
He starts an arc gradually, and then they make him watch Game of Thrones, and then he immediately... That's why Damon sucks for me.
So, you know, when I think back to like classic television like Breaking Bad, there's typically a character arc of every season. Something has happened.
Definitely.
Where with Rhaenyra, I don't really feel like she's emotionally moved anywhere since maybe past episode 2.
It kind of brings up the nature of adaptation, though. So we could just say this was a horrible book to adapt, because...
Which it is, like, would be sympathetic.
But it's also the most free book to adapt. If you're going to adapt a law book, this is one of the best to do it, because they've given you a plot breakdown.
And options.
Yeah, and options.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't even break the canon.
No.
Technically, it should be one of the best books to adapt, but have they just not put in the effort to adapt it? And is it their job as part of the adaptation to give every single character a character arc, or at least the mains, and have them move from point A to point B? Should they have invented more stuff?
Well, what everyone's worried about is that now in 2 seasons, particularly in this season, where both sides have done some shit, Rhaenyra has been absolved of any wrongdoing of Team Black.
She is correct.
Even sending Rhaenys off to war, which in the book, it's the only thing it's confirmed that she went to Rhaenys, you go and deal with this problem, and then Rhaenys died. They then spared her from that. They spared her from any ill decision. And knowing where this book is meant to end, if they keep doing this, I half expect the ending to be different.
The book almost takes it out of Rhaenyra's hands as well, because her, like you say, her dragon isn't a fighting dragon anyway. So she was never a good person to send. Whereas in this, she's like, I'll go. I have a pretty big dragon and could probably win. And they're like, no. Like, we'll do it for you.
Yeah.
Jace tries to have a character arc by saying, I'll go. And Mummy is like, no.
I kind of wish they had actually branched this out more, because I remember the first season people going, and you said, it's not like Game of Thrones to spend most of the time in the Red Keep, because that's what the drama is. But there is a world in which maybe they decided to actually span this out a bit more, where you could have been introduced to the pirate character earlier and had a whole narrative. I know it maybe just wasted time, but
I would at least care when they die.
the Jace arc of, like, my mum's distraught, singing herself into tomes, saying how she's the prophesized hero. So for these few weeks while she's dealing with that, I want to step up and be the ruler. I've already got the North on side, I've got the Vale on side, and now I'm going to try and get these dragon seeds sorted. Then he could have had a whole arc of that, and we might have been left going, which is what they don't want to happen. When Rhaenyra comes back in charge, it all starts going wrong, because that means that women are bad. Because for some reason, in the show, I'm not saying this is what the writers think, but the show comes across as they don't want to have Rhaenyra and Alicent do anything bad, because they're women, because they represent womanhood. For some reason, they've decided to make these two characters represent womanhood.
Girls can't hate other girls.
Girls can't hate, which seems to be their problem. They've fought it. Well, we can't have two girls hating each other. I don't know why there seems to be this overthinking of it, because two men can hate each other just fine in the show, and no one's going, oh, we can't have boys hate each other. But for some reason they can't allow that. They can't allow women to be jealous or petty of one another. I remember when George was asked, you write such great female characters, how do you do it? That's why I tend to just think of women as people.
Whoops.
Like, and it's, he has so many great characters. He has, like, I forget her name, but a Lannister character who could easily be considered girl bossy, but she doesn't feel it because he explores her well.
You got Cersei, Marjorie, and
yeah,
Elena.
but then there's like there's other characters who would never show up in the show.
But that's just like three immediate ones. Like, especially with Marjorie, she starts out as sweet and innocent, but then you're like, oh, she's way more than that. Like,
she's playing into it. She plays the innocent lamb because that's what men want and
Mum
expect.
told her. Turns out boys are very stupid.
Oh, and I completely
OnlyFans proves that very well.
I completely agree. As a male, I can attest to we are idiots. I know we can get like stuck on this point a lot, so we probably have to stretch it out a bit more. I want to stress, obviously, that this is an incredibly, really good-looking show. And I forget the man's name, but the guy who's in charge of the production design, who's constantly on the behind the scenes, the guy with the glasses, a wonderful, fantastic job. The camera work, the acting, almost everyone, not you.
Writing is kind of the most pivotal thing of all. We're here for the stories. Everything else just builds around that.
It's an example of that, of like everything being a 10 out of 10, but the character arc and writing is where we're a little bit rocky. It's not bad, it's not god awful, but it's disappointing considering the strength they had in season 1. They really set up some cool dynamics in that last shot.
I think season 1's detriment was also its benefit. So they were all crammed in the Red Keep, but this allowed for a lot more scheming. Yeah. And this show is massively missing that in season 2. Like, Game of Thrones had it in spades. Game of Thrones was constantly scheming. As part of my Rhaenyra fucking sucks point, I brought up how much screen time each character gets from Game of Thrones. Some lovely Redditor has done my work for me. Tyrion Lannister had the most screen time in the 8 seasons of anyone by far. And it's because he's talking and scheming the whole time.
Yeah, season 2, Tyrion, like when he's the Hand, is one of the best bits.
And he's one of the most grey characters they've got.
In the book particularly, he's a morally grey character on the considered evil side. And in the show, they have it like, it's a character you love who happens to be on the dark side, if you will.
Yeah, this show is just missing all of that scheming and intrigue. There's no mystery. Like, you had a lot from the Night King, especially, and the whole what's beyond the wall stuff. You got a lot of mystery.
Isn't a real story, which is their problem.
But should they have done that as part of the adaptation? Should they have brought something in to add that to it? They're not adapting it word for word as is, because they can't. So how much should they have brought?
Well, that's a large problem. It's that not only are they not adding, not saying they need or should, but then they take away interesting crinkles, like we talk about. In the original Game of Thrones show, and the books, obviously, there's a bit where they have a Lannister of the Lesser Branch who Jaime ends up killing in the cage. And he's like the peace talks guy. So he runs the King's Landing and gives Robb Stark's peace talks. And then they send him back where he gives Lannister's peace talks, going, oh, they're going to give your father's bands back. This concept of peace banners, which Otto does in episode 10 of season 1 when he visits Rhaenyra.
Yep.
Under a peace banner. So why didn't they just have Rhaenyra organise some peace talks with Alicent?
If you wanted to get your women together.
Yeah, like, can we just have a formal peace talk and just talk it out like Stannis and Renly do with the peach scene? It's a known thing in both medieval history and the Game of Thrones universe that this is a concept.
They can meet on a boat in the middle of the ocean between King's Landing.
Yeah, and they can bring all the dragons they want to make sure nothing goes wrong.
So that it's either everything goes wrong or nothing goes wrong.
Because if we still want the women who just want to keep peace, Alicent sucks in the show. She's now my least favorite character. It's the only problem is just how she's been written.
The last thing I'll say about Alicent before we move on is when she tries to drown herself, and they make a big point of, oh, this is a pivotal moment for Alicent. She's going to change. I guess she decided she doesn't care about one of her kids.
Well, no, that's it. All her children would have to die.
Helena, she's like, I can keep Helena. The rest can go fuck themselves.
Yeah, all of them have to go and screw themselves. Where people could have been here talking about her like she was the female Littlefinger or even a Tyrion. Like she's working the men around her. And you could have had people here bitching about how all the men are idiots. You know, like her giving feet pics to Larys could have been her going, God, it's, even though this is gross, it's so fucking hilarious that this smart guy will literally do whatever because...
Yeah.
And she just knows, she's learnt all their secrets like Peter Baelish. But instead of doing that interesting thing, they just have a bit of powerless woman annoyed that the patriarchy exists. Even though all viewers watching this know that the patriarchy will continue to exist.
At least 200 years.
Yeah.
Because we kind of thought, Bran becomes king. It continues. It should have been all or nothing for her, basically. Like when she had her big zoom in moment, like freak out, she should have been like, okay, I'm going to go full on like conniving mode. I'm going to, like, maybe she's going to start breaking her own rules. So like that could have been her moment where she's like, it's either my kids or my gods.
And have her care about her kids, but also know how to work them. So even though you're like, because in the book, she seems to be, obviously we don't get all the details, but she's actively involved in all of this stuff. She has plotted, she's helping them rule council while they're there. So you can imagine her, you know, even when Aemon becomes in charge, he's still having his mum around because she's his mum and she maybe knows how to get through to her little son. Oh, little Aemon, now I looked after you. And
they think that they need her at the very
least.
Mums
are good at that. I don't know. We could go on and on about how, not because they're women, but just how they've misrepresented this character, how they've done poorly with this character. And regardless of the gender, it's not a good job. And I think, obviously, we're being fairly negative, which it's sad because the show, since we are doing a season review.
Are there any good things about Alicent or Rhaenyra that you can bring up?
Performances. They do what they do. They do what they can. I'm honestly quite worried that they aren't going to do... Eventually Rhaenyra has to end up doing some shit, and she already has, but they then have to actually go, it's kind of wrong, isn't it? And they have to not spare her of, like, you know, she didn't really kill her husband. She only killed the random guard or whatever that guy was. Yeah, I can't really think much positive about them. I got big whiplash because I watched the first episode again of season 2. And Corlys is on the fucking docks with Alan. I'm like, oh God, they never weren't on the docks all season.
He spent 8 episodes building a ship.
It's like The Office called The Docks. And it's just Alan being the fucking Dwight.
But we also
of it all.
don't see anything of that.
It makes the world feel so empty.
He just walks onto the dock, says something to Alan or Adam, and then actually never talks to Adam, says something to Alan, and then just walks off the docks, and then we cut away for like that episode, and then we cut back. He walks back onto the docks, says something to the man still scrubbing away, and he's like, is it good? And he's like, cool. And then he leaves, and then he does that at least once every episode. One time he's on the docks just so Rhaenys can come talk to him.
Yeah, and then the behind the scenes of that.
It sounds like a fucking nightmare.
They went to so much effort for just the fucking... They could have had that anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's like... Of course, in the books, he's like running shop right now. He's at council. That would have been fun, having him be there. Like, while Damon's off trying to secure the Riverlands, maybe Corlys is teaching his grandson, Jace, how to rule. And that could be the arc there a little bit.
We said a bunch of times how good it was whenever they'd cut back to the Green Council. Like, we'd be like, damn, the Green Council is carrying the show.
Doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Like the council scenes from Game of Thrones had the exact same effect. Everyone was always like locked in when those happened. Whereas with this, the Black Council, we never once said, we're so happy.
What a great Black Council scene.
Yeah. We never said that because it was always nothing. It was a bunch of bickering. And then Rhaenyra would walk in and go, guys, you're all being idiots. I'm the queen. And they'd be like, the queen.
Yes. Where, you could have had her, Corlys, Baylor is there. Like, they could have been some defining characters on the sides having opinions. So a lot of characters are just kind of hanging around this season. I think, quickly, Corlys is absolutely crap in this. His wife died, his legacy's a lie, and he just kind of gets over it.
And he gets 3 scenes. He gets a crying scene, one talking to Baylor, and then one when he comes back, I guess.
Yeah, I named my boat after my wife. I've got 2 sons. I could have a whole arc about trying to reconnect with them, but no, we'd rather not do that. And like, I saw someone in the comments go, him having bastards is very normal for a man to have bastards. It's less normal for them to be a part of the household, but it's not unheard of.
But they're completely hidden.
They can be bastards in the household who are just bastards.
Ned Stark can have a ward in Theon Greyjoy, just living with them, and it's fine. Whereas Corlys is like, and
then have a bastard son hanging around. Yeah, like, why?
I guess his wife would be mad.
But now she's dead, and she already knew anyway. I'm not saying he has to then go legitimise these bastard sons, but he could at least, in the book he says, it's my grandsons, it's my son's sons, which is obviously stupid, and everyone says, well, your son was gay, and also the age doesn't really work out, because in the books they are 15, 16, they're Jace's age. So they're meant to be. But in this, they are full grown-ass men. So they do nothing with Corlys. I think, obviously, and the one that you'll cut to is Damon. In this super focused-in section of the book, Damon effectively goes to the Riverlands, gets all the River Lords, and then Season 3 will begin.
Yeah, the behind-the-scenes talks a lot about the Battle of the Gullet and how he wants to give that room to breathe. I don't know what that is, but they talk about that being, like, the reason why they cut this season when they did.
With the behind-the-scenes stuff from what we know now, sympathetic to it, they wanted Season 1 to be 12 episodes, but it was cut to 10. And then whoever the guy who's now in charge of Max or HBO,
that fucked
they
hard.
Very last minute told them, even though they wrote 10 episodes, no, it'd be 8 episodes. And then because of the riot strike, they then didn't have any time. That's why this season just kind of ends. It doesn't have a resolution. It doesn't have a big moment where a character has either moved into a new position or has changed. Rhaenyra largely is the same, except now really fully, truly understands its war. But instead of it being anger, it's a reluctance to go to war. A reluctance to go to war.
Yeah.
Over the death of your son and all that.
And then, because you're the chosen one. Yeah. She could just not.
They took my throne, they took my daughter, I'll fucking kill him. Is basically the quote from the book.
Because they've removed her seemingly caring about, like, the Night King coming and stuff, like, she could just leave things as they are currently.
She said that in Season 1. When she went to Damon, she goes, it's my job to make sure that we don't destroy shit.
I don't want to be Queen of the Ashes.
And then, when Lucerys dies, we get that look going, it's personal now. Fuck rules, fuck all that, it's personal. But then they walk that back almost immediately.
Yeah.
Really lame. So we keep going back to him. But Damon flies to Harrenhal. I was initially quite excited because we get to see Harrenhal in its proper glory.
You were pumped in that review.
And then we fucking stayed there. I thought it was going to be like a 1 or 2 in Harrenhal.
Because that means he spent 5 episodes.
The majority of his season there. Doing wiki dives.
Walking around a dark castle. Like, it's almost the same shots every time too, with it's him with his sword out and the camera's just trailing him down these dark corridors.
I feel like in a different era, I know obviously budget and stuff, but this is where you would have then introduced the Riverlords. You would have had a Blackwood character, you would have had the Tully character and the Brackens, and they would have been a bit more like the same way you have the dynamics in the actual Game of Thrones show. Different houses wanting different things.
Yeah.
And how is Damon going to navigate all of this without burning them and making them bend the knee? And maybe that would be it. Damon realising that there's more to being a ruler than what his ancestors did, and that's riding him with a dragon and going, I'm in charge now.
Yes.
I don't know, I've said that like, there it is. It's way harder to write that. But what they did was so dull.
Especially because his opposition can do the same. He can roll in, burn everyone, but then Aemond can come and burn everyone again. So it's like, that can't be the way you win.
Yeah, that can't be the way you win. Because, initially it was like, oh, it's cool to see some flashbacks and Damon's type of character who needs some self-reflection. You still could have had that, but I wouldn't have had it nearly as much.
And the main problem is that they're not what makes him change his mind. Prophecy of the future.
It touches George Martin's forward.
Yes.
Because even up to before that point, as you brought up, he's almost thinking about declaring himself king because one of her lords goes.
It's like, you'd make a great king. He's like, babe, I would make a good king.
And then Alice Rivers, super disappointing. The disappointment of the season.
Another person you were so hyped on.
Yeah, he makes him touch George Martin's forehead and he goes, like fucking Danny DeVito, I get it now. And then that's it.
She would have been much better served if they kept more mystery behind her.
Yeah, I like what her goals are.
Yeah. Like in that episode 1 and 2 that they show her, you're just like, who is this chick? Like, why?
What's her goals?
Yeah. And even seeing Damon losing time was very interesting. And it also explained away why he wasn't helping with Rhaenyra's stuff. Like, she's trying to get stuff done, but you've got Damon over here having his own little side quest fighting his brain. My main annoyance is, that he gets the flash forward.
And then that's what character changes him.
Snaps.
It's like, oh, it all makes sense
and
now.
it's all in one episode too.
Super rushed, considering it's an hour and a half episode, whatever, and an hour 10, hour 15. Another thing I was telling you off camera was, I think I would have preferred the Dragon Seed episode to be like a bottle episode. I saw a comment on a Reddit going, I think they overestimated people's recognition of characters just showing up a minute or two in an episode.
Weeks apart.
She was like, I was watching this with my mum, and she thought we only met Ulf when he claimed the dragon. She didn't make the connection that was Ulf in all those previous bar scenes.
I don't know if I would have noticed if you didn't point him out. When he first talks to Aegon,
you would have forgot
You're like, it's Hugh the Hammer. And I was like, okay, I guess he's someone.
And so then Ulf, when he pickpockets... The only reason I knew that was Ulf was because I went on the wiki and saw who the actors were. But yeah, someone just watching that, not knowing, that initial him seeing the rat catchers, which for, oh, that's just an extra who got a line that day.
Yeah.
Like, lucky him.
And that's all you can really boil them down to. Like, you see Ulf look at the rat catchers and be like, oh, glad that's not me. And then his subsequent
get in the
3
second
episodes,
episode where he walks in the bar,
he's just
says
in a bar,
he's a Targaryen
like
bastard.
every other time.
Yeah.
And then Hugh, we see talk to Aegon, and we're like, okay, he's a blacksmith. Like, he's a working man. He's a small folk. And then they cut to him with his sick daughter. And then they cut to him with his sick daughter. And then they cut to him with his sick daughter.
Cut to him with his dead daughter.
Off screen.
Then
God
Adam
damn.
is just someone who wishes he was a lord because he knows his dad's a lord.
Well, Alan gets all of the screen time.
Yeah.
Alan gets all the deep conversations and everything with Daddy. And then Adam's always like sitting in the background, then looks up at the talking and then looks back down at what he's doing. Or looks up in the sky and sees a dragon.
Yeah.
And while we're doing dragon seeds, Rhaenyra might as well. Not really a dragon seed, but same vibe.
I checked, by the way, in the book, she spends the majority of the dance up in the Vale.
Because of who she is, they make a big point of, I need to send my young sons and you away to protect you. But no attempt has been made on anyone except Rhaenyra that one time. And they're not really in any danger on Dragonstone. So it's like, why do I care?
Those two boys, like, they have an important bit, which will be in season 3.
They're getting sent away so something can happen.
Yeah.
Like, if they stayed put, they would be stagnant. But instead, they're getting sent away.
For whatever reason, she becomes so fearful that the war's going to get too much that we send them to Essos.
You could do that via paranoia.
Yeah, like I want to send my kids away because I'm worried they're going to get eaten by a dragon because I've just lost one son.
Because one's name is Aegon.
Like, reasonably implies that she's lost a son and a daughter because of this.
Yeah.
So she's worried that if they stick around, they'll die. So I best put them away and then I'd rather lose a year of parenting than them forever. So Rhaenyra is been morphed in with nettles. And so far we have a mixed response to that because Rhaenyra hasn't done anything. She spent episodes being annoyed and then 2 episodes running for the dragon and then still didn't even get the fucker.
She would have been better off disappearing and not coming back. Like, zoom in on her in season 3 Let me forget.
You wouldn't know this, but they're twins in the books, Rhaenyra
Yes.
and Baela.
I don't know if they are in the show, but they have never mentioned it, or they
Made
look
that clear.
they look
Nothing
10
like-
years apart almost.
Yeah, Baela in the book is more of her father's daughter, like more aggressive. She's a little bit neutered in this, like she's a lot more hot-tempered.
She's
in
motherly in
Yeah, well, she's a lot more hot-tempered, and if you don't want to have three characters, or you think it's pointless having Rhaenyra and then for her to go up to the Vale, but I would have just simply just had it be Baela's an only child. Damon had a bastard daughter called Nettles, and then she gets introduced, and then it's like the legitimate daughter, and then it's the bastard daughter, and then there you go. And maybe that's what I would have done. If you are thinking in terms of economic storytelling, for the sake of this story, Rhaenyra doesn't necessarily need to exist.
It's a show about bastards, though, so yeah, removing Nettles is weird.
It's weird.
/ maybe Rhaenyra's not actually a bastard, but she's a bastard to her father. As in,
Yeah.
like, she doesn't have a dragon, so he's like, you're not my real kid. And then you could, like, morph that bastard thing into people that don't belong, I guess.
Exactly, and just it's frustrating that we don't get anything else, and for somehow in an 8-episode season with less characters than Game of Thrones, they managed to not find any time for them, which is really strange to me.
Yeah.
They have hours of stuff, and Rhaenyra's collective minutes of the whole show can be 10 or 15.
I can probably double check, but I think Tywin Lannister gets more time than Rhaenyra. Just in his final
In his
episode.
final episode, he had more.
And a couple of little spots in the Green Council. I think overall he gets more time than Rhaenyra. And he's inconsequential.
And
honestly.
Baela's so disappointing. Jace gets some cool moments, and Jace gets to have these, hey, this is really wrong, we're doing this, Mom.
Jace wants cool moments. He doesn't. I wouldn't say Jace gets any, though.
His thing's going to be like how he's, we get to see him be diplomatic with the phrase.
That was his good bit.
Apart from that, it's him sitting around being annoyed. It feels like everyone's sitting around annoyed during this part of the book.
And then I'm at home watching the show, sitting around being annoyed. It's immersive.
Leading up to Rook's Rest, we had like a 10-minute, so we had the blood and cheese, we had Eric and Eric, then we had Rhaenyra sneaking into the...
Stuff happens the first 2 episodes.
And then we have Rook's Rest. So they were like, every episode needs to end on something. And then I couldn't tell you what the ending of the next
After
8
Rook's
are.
Rest, yeah.
The next 4 are.
Episode 5 is Corlys holds the badge of the hand.
See, it goes away. I can't remember what they are.
We were moderately condemning the fact that everything needs to end on a high, like a big punchy for
Yeah.
next week, because it can become too much.
It
But
can.
without it, oh no, that's worse.
Almost like they were really working towards Rook's Rest, and then they went, oh, now what? And what should have been, you could have done what those 4 episodes did in 2 episodes. I personally believe.
100%. I said it back when we reviewed episode 3 or 4, like either Rook's Rest or the previously. I was like, should this have been the first episode? And you said no. But now it kind of feels like maybe everything should have been shoofed up a little bit more.
Rook's Rest could have been episode 2 or 3. Everything could have been moved back 1 or 2 episodes, potentially.
Yeah. And we could have at least ended at the start of the next big fight.
Imagine if Blood and Cheese was halfway through episode 1. And then you combine those 2 things together.
Part of me thinks earlier, because of the 1-2 punch of Luke dying and then Blood and Cheese, maybe it should have been they were both in the same episode last season. Just more punchy rather than
Yeah.
we forgot about it because it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So Damon being very disappointing was a shame. The dragon seeds being just largely quite forgettable up until the point they become dragon seeds, which in the book is the case. They just get the dragon seeds that are on Dragonstone because that's where it is, because the Targaryens have been on Dragonstone for hundreds of years by that point. So it was normal for those young men to go down to the villages and the small towns of Dragonstone and have their way with the women because they were like worshipped as gods because they're the dragon riders.
Yeah.
So I would have rather have just had a fully focused Dragon Seed episode where we introduce the characters, and you can have 1 or 2 really good scenes and an audience will be on side. A example would be the first Tywin scene in the book is when he's gutting the stag with Jaime. That's one scene you immediately get and like this character in that one fucking scene. Ulf and Hugh have more time than Tywin did in that one scene. And I know you're comparing Tywin, you're comparing one of the great characters of modern fantasy.
But they could have made him...
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, they should have approached it going, if Hugh could only get 1 good scene, how good could we make it? If
Yeah.
Ulf could only get 1 good scene, how good could we make it?
Well, I mean, we did semi-get it. Like, he was a small folk blacksmith with a sick daughter. We got it.
Yeah.
But then they showed us that scene 3 more times.
You could have had that in the Dragon Seed episode.
It's a good moment of being like, oh, I'm poor, please help me.
Because there's empathy, then there's sympathy. We can be empathetic to you going, man, yeah, if I lost my daughter, I'd be pretty upset too. But we aren't sad. We aren't sad that that character died. We aren't like, oh, I love that character, that's sad she died.
Especially because she died off screen.
Like the same way when we're upset that Rhaenyra went, because we got to know Luke a little bit. So we felt sad when he died.
I think we spent a lot of time with him.
So we had that sympathy, not that empathy. You know what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I guess moving into things that I like, I think Aegon's probably my favourite thing of the season. I think in terms of changing things from season 1 to season 2, this was probably a good choice, but also if you're watching them as a binge, as we've said, you know, you watch episode 9 with Eric and Eric going off on their adventure, and Eric's trying to show Eric all the horrible, heinous things that Aegon does. And then 2 episodes later, it's him going, be calm, Hugh, your king welcomes and would love to help you. It feels so like out of... It feels like a 180. I think people sat down and were ready for Joffrey in that scene.
I was, for sure.
So I guess it's meant to be this, okay, that's nice that he cares about them, but then it feels too little too late because you've made him, and for some reason audiences by their large decided to be Team Black, fuck Team Green, meh.
Well, because they made it that way.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Is it partly because... it's been 2 years since they've written those characters, or since we've seen those characters. Yeah. How much of a snap change is there going to be by next year?
I'm not saying this is a problem that I could solve or necessarily need to solve, but last season was too quick and this season's too slow. So then my overall complaint would be they can't seem to get the balance right. Yeah. We see 3 versions of Aegon in season 1. We see Baby, Ty Tennant, and then now the fully grown up version.
So pointless using Ty Tennant.
Yeah, I think they cast him and then he got a growth spurt because he's taller than the actual than the current Aegon actor. But we get that one scene in episode 8 of season 1 where after he's great Diana, he then has this scene of like, you and father never liked me. It's like, oh, how are we meant to feel sorry for you if we've been introduced to you as the woman abuser? They had lots of ideas where to start, and maybe now with the benefit of hindsight, one maybe would have started with the fully grown up versions, the first scene being, you know, what you're saying, going off to Evil Queen with
drops
the baby.
And then you're like, wow, how did we get to this bitchy relationship?
And you spend 10 episodes with some flashbacks, not just Rhaenyra and Alicent, but now you get the dynamics of Aegon. How Aegon is the son who desperately wanted his father's attention, but his father was either too busy with his Legos or doting over his spoilt brat daughter from his other marriage.
Which would give Aegon a dislike for her instead, because Aegon doesn't know her.
Yeah, and then Mum Molly coddles him and tries to make him feel more important.
And Mum says, look at this bitch, Rhaenyra, getting all of your, like, if only Dad loved you as much.
And they're doing a little bit with Aemond of, like, the boy without the dragon. Like, his brother's got this awesome gold one. His sister claimed this old, ancient one, and yet his egg didn't crack. And these bastards over here, all their eggs cracked. They kind of do that.
You say with the benefit of hindsight, but they wrote the scripts. They could read them. Like, they were all laid out on the table for them to read. They had hindsight.
They decided, which felt like a good choice at the time, we're going to make Alicent and Rhaenyra the anchor points.
Yes.
So everything else is just around them. But then those anchors have sunk this ship now because they've done nothing with those anchors. That's a completely fine theory. Like Breaking Bad revolves all around Walter White. If you're going to do that, revolve it all around 1 or 2 characters. You have to do shit with them. Walter White is changing constantly while the world kind of remains the same. The world kind of remains the same, but the characters need to change.
Well, like, we both kind of agree that Viserys is the main arc of season 1. So it's like he ends up being the anchor character. He's the anchor being of House of the Dragon without them meaning for him to be.
Yeah, he was he's the guy everyone talks about. My point there being that do that, make them the anchors, but if you do this now, you slow it all down, which is what's happened. Then it makes me go, well, I really like Aegon, but I can't get in the back of my head that we had fuck all from him except that he was a drunk rapist.
He sucked,
from season 1. So now when you've got him here going, oh, well, I just want the approval of my mum and I want the approval of the people because I've been starved for attention all my life.
Yeah.
So now here it is. I didn't get that from season 1, except that one fucking scene in episode 8. And then when he asks his mum, do you love me, in episode 9, when he's being carted off to the procession. The habit I'm seeing a lot, it was in season 1, it's a lot here, where the showrunners are explaining in these behind the scenes what it all means.
It's every show recently.
How about you just put it in the fucking show for me?
They can't. Yeah, I don't know why, because Russell T Davies of Doctor Who does the exact same thing.
The Bear season 3 struggled a lot as well.
The Bear
it's
does
this
it.
writer's strike. I have to think that had some kind of effect.
I don't know. It's hard to say.
It's hard to get behind Aegon because Aegon has the most happen to him.
Yes.
There's some great moments, and the actor Tom, I think his name, when like Alicent walks in and sees him just crying and she doesn't know how to comfort him, so she leaves. And that's like the High Tower, like her dad doesn't want to comfort her, so she doesn't comfort her son. So then we wonder why he isn't the most like comforting man in the world.
Yeah.
And you hear these stories of Tom and the actress for Helena had to fight for that fucking staircase scene, apparently, where they just cross each other.
Literally for one glance.
And I watch it and translate that as they don't know what to say to each other. But they wanted that to come across as a linking of me and you have just lost a son together. Imagine being a writer and having your actor go, I think it'd be really important for Aegon, the primary fucking antagonist of this show, or whatever, however you want to put it, maybe he should have a sit down with his wife and have them sort of mourn together about the loss of their son.
Yeah.
And what could that do preparing forward for this show? Because we talk about Game of Thrones, how you've got like Tyrion who's on the bad side. And then, you know, you also get characters you hate on the good side, like Roose Bolton, absolute weird vampire creeper guy. And yet he's like Robb Stark's right-hand man.
Yeah.
And so you get all these interesting things. So they opted to make Aegon the worst possible version, tried to step it back, but then couldn't go all the way. Like, if you want to talk about perception and that book being propaganda, when Aemon comes back after killing his, you know, becoming a Kingslayer, Aegon throws a banquet for him, saying how great it is. And Alicent has a fun line going, you only lost one eye, how could you be so blind? Fun line. You could interpret that Aegon, worrying for his little brother and his condition, maybe, throws a banquet to try and make it a good thing. You know, my brother defended himself against like the horrible bastard who tried to attack him. You could spin it any way you want if you want to play the spinny game, where Rhaenyra is actually really nice. So to do that, Rhaenyra is actually Jesus in human form, or whatever. is Jesus come again? But Aegon's actually a prick.
Yeah.
It's no. You're making choices here, and I think they're wrong. Like we haven't even spoke about Aemond yet.
I was about to say, Aemond, I think, is the last one we have to cover.
Because what the fuck really happened there? We get some fairly cool stuff at the start. It's meant to be he's fiercely loyal to his brother, which is what he kind of is for the first few episodes. But then because his brother laughs at him drunkenly for being with a whore, he thinks, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to burn you.
I think in the show, for me at least, it came across more of like fiercely loyal to the rules. So like, my brother is the king, I'm not the king. In Ep 10 of season 1, you've got him saying, I should be king, but you're supposed to be king, so you're king. You don't get a choice. The rules are you're king. So that's why I've always seen Aemond
like
as...
he said, if they come looking for me, I won't hide.
Yes, he's like the ultimate rule follower. So he's like, if you fuck up, then I'll be king, then that's okay.
The whole idea that he claims the dragon and his dad still won't go, hey, nice one, son. You know, like that's it. Like, and I know they can't give all the focus to everyone, but they managed it. In those early seasons of Game of Thrones, you managed to have 12 characters who all felt like main characters.
Yeah.
And now they had more stuff to grab from because it's a real story. There's still stuff here that you could grab from because there's less characters.
And again, the nature of adaptation, they should have added that stuff.
So you could have a season where Jace is learning to rule and the parallels of Jace trying to run Dragonstone with Aemond finally gets to be king. But anyway.
Yeah, if HBO wants more episodes, you can give them more episodes
and have them be good
by doing things with characters. You've got the characters there, but they decided that everyone should be pretty stagnant. Because like Aemond,
once he becomes king, just kind of stays there.
Yeah,
well,
like I was very interested to see what he does when he becomes king. Like, will he be a good king? Will he be a tyrant? Like, what will he do? But he's preoccupied with war. So he doesn't actually rule, really. He sits in the chair, but he doesn't really do anything different to what he was doing before, because before he was king, Aegon was in charge, and he was still plotting with Cole to do the war. So he's just doing the war in a different chair.
They could have had a scene that echoed Aegon, where Aemond is finally sitting on the Iron Throne. Small folk come to appeal to him, and he's like, I don't have time for this.
Yep.
And it's the difference from Aegon. I know, obviously, politically things are a little bit different now, a bit more wars going on, but still, I have time for the small folk.
It would have been interesting to see at the very least.
Yeah, like, bring me the lords to talk with. I don't want to speak with the small folk today.
Yeah. You could use Hugh the Hammer again. It could be like...
You goes, yeah, I'd love to get paid. No, fuck off.
Yeah, it's
and
like, no, you're
it.
doing this out of loyalty. I'm not the king because I get paid. I'm the king because I have to be.
Fuck.
You make weapons for me because you have to.
And that could have been the good scene we're talking about, where you goes, this is fucking stupid.
Yeah, and then he fucks off.
And he fucks off.
He's like, actually, don't love
My daughter
this.
died because of the promises of Aegon.
Yeah.
Fuck. That'd have been good.
Could have been anything, yeah.
But instead we had to get Allison sneaking off to Rhaenyra again, or you know, like, I'm not saying you have to get rid of the Allison stuff because it's bad. I'm saying you have to make the Allison stuff good.
Yes. If you're going to send her into the forest for most of an episode to drown herself and have a realization, she should have come out of that like Damon came out of watching Game of Thrones. Like, she should have come out of that a very different person.
Yeah.
Not just the same person, but more boring somehow.
The example I'm saying of a good scene is Jaime is like that Shrek Prince Charming arsehole guy, but then we have that bath scene after he loses his hand. And we finally get to see that he actually did the right thing and he killed the Mad King to save others, but because everyone spurned him for killing the king, he's kind of wore that like armour. Yes, I am the bastard king killer.
From the beginning, in fairness, the things we do for love, like, he doesn't view his love of his sister as in his control.
Yeah.
So he's like, he's done awful things and he knows he probably shouldn't be banging his sister, but he's like, it's just the way it is.
She manipulates him a lot, particularly in the book.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't help.
So she loves him because he's basically an extension of her. She absolutely loves herself to a fault. But that's what I'm talking about. You give Jaime one good fucking scene and we're on board with him just like that. It's a great scene. Same with... I could go on about it, like how Pedro Pascal as
Oberyn
spends 29 minutes in season 4. That's how long it is. He's 29 minutes, but he has such an impact. One of those scenes is when he sits down.
He lives for 29 minutes. Wow.
You have that incredible scene where they move the conversation to Tyrion in the prison, where he goes, you know, I met you when you were a kid, and Pedro does a wonderful job where he says, you know, that's not a monster, I told Cersei, that's just a baby. And you're like, that's wonderfully performed. This guy's fucking awesome. He should be so lame. This, like, you know, you killed my father, prepare to die. Like that in Game of Thrones shouldn't work, but it works so wonderfully. And once again, one really good scene. So then in this, Hugh Hammer could have been as awesome as Oberyn. Ulf could have been as awesome as Oberyn. These roguish characters who then get dragons.
If you gave Rhaenyra any of the Nettle stuff where she's a bad bitch, like, Rhaenyra could have been your Arya Stark. Like, she's your smart mouth little fucker that you're like, you know what?
Yeah. Like, if you're going to change things for the narrative,
give it to him.
I think overall, this is one of the prettiest disappointments. It's shot well. It's acted well. It takes Alan 8 episodes to go, fuck you, Dad.
Yeah.
Like, and on the fucking docks. Like, on the docks
and
again.
we don't see them as kids, even though they would have been kids in season 1. So, like,
yeah, if they were really planting seeds. Oh, yeah.
Planting dragon seeds. But yeah, like,
imagine that.
You were in that timeline.
Planting seeds for the dragon seeds.
So you might have, like, I don't know if they'll be able to bring it back for season 3. There's probably going to be some incredible moments in season 3.
But season 3's where...
the writing might not improve, but you'll get all your dragons and all your murder. You're going to get your gullet.
You're going to get all these big moments. You're going to get Benjicott Blackwood. You're going to get the greybeards coming down. You're going to get all that stuff. Like, it's going to open on the gullet. That's a strong opener.
Don't know what that is, but yeah. It's the next battle.
It's the boats. It's the pirates.
Okay.
It's, we're seeing it. And they're going to go into...
So that's why they waited till episode 8 to set that up.
Yeah, because then they're going to go fight Corlys. They're going to go break the blockade at the Stepstones.
So the Battle of the Gullet is literally the thing that they've set up for 8 episodes. As far as Corlys goes, of him, he makes a boat.
Yeah.
And then Tyland gets some boats in episode 8. That's a crazy way to set that up.
They reckon now Otto has to be with the Beesburys, because where else would he be?
Which we've never seen.
He's a captive of the... Yeah, well, Beesbury's the guy who got killed when Criston Cole kills him.
Yes, okay.
So then his family are like, you fucking killed our dad, so we're rising up against you fuckers. So then they're trying to fight the High Towers in the Reach.
That's going to have no bearing on anything, because we haven't seen it.
So surely on his way down the Old Town, he would have got intercepted by the Beesburys. And now they're going to have a Daeron hero moment, where Daeron comes in blazing and goes, grandfather. And then Otto's going to be like, we're rolling back up to the Red Keep. because you're a grandson I can fucking be in charge with, I think.
I'd say that's pretty much everything. We spent so long talking about Rhaenyra and Alicent just because they are the key points of the show.
They're who we want us to focus. They're on the poster. They are what they want us to be talking about.
And you're able to break down everyone else's arcs so quickly because they have so little, unfortunately.
But then the Rhaenyra does too, because they're afraid to give her anything.
I guess most of it is us talking about, what should have been.
Ultimately, it's an example of being afraid to do something with your characters because you're viewing them as what they represent rather than who they are.
In the modern age, too.
Yeah, you're bringing a modern lens to a medieval fantasy. Where a woman who is born of incest believes she is Jesus or believes her family is of a chosen line. And you aren't thinking about how that would fuck up someone's perspective on the world.
Girls have to be kind to girls.
Rhaenyra is doing all this because she was friends with someone for a few years in her childhood.
Yes.
They were enemies. Alicent did some fucking horrible shit to her.
And
I want to see your
time.
baby the moment it's born.
Yep.
You're dragging that shit up with you. That shit burns friendships.
And she's been on Dragonstone longer than she's been in King's Landing.
Yes, you're
from
doing
an episode
all
standpoint.
this because for your childhood crush. Basically.
Yeah.
And that's why the show is this season really, I think, fell flat because of those anchor point characters, ultimately.
Yeah, lives and dies by them, unfortunately.
And it's their fault. Thanks for sticking with us on this.
We'll make another one about something, probably.
Oh, we're going to, the next one.
Let us know if you're interested in The Witcher. That'll be a very different style of review.
Yeah, that'll be different. Yeah, they've got the Witch animation coming out this year.
Oh, that's true.